Welcome back to the show, The Unbroken with Sam Davis. My guest here today is from my hometown. He's seen me at my worst. I've seen him at his worst. Our family tree intermingles. We're related somewhere down the line to some degree, which, mind you, in the South, if your genetics even cross paths even just a little bit, you're related. A lot of people don't know what kin is, but in the South, that means you're related. He's gotten his life together. Man, he's impacting a bunch of lives out here. His life has been completely changed, and I wanted to have him on here today and tell his story. Michael Sneed, a.k.a. Bucky, here you are.
Thanks
for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Yeah, finally we did this.
Finally.
Came from our little small town and came up here to the big city to sit in the studio and tell some folks what happened.
Yes, sir.
What was it like being Bucky, being Michael? Are you all right with Bucky? I mean, that's your nickname, right?
Bucky's fine.
Yeah.
I grew up in Blackstone, Virginia. Had a really nice, good family. Just lived on a farm all my life, and just my mom, she struggled with alcoholism, so I seen the struggles with the alcoholism, but I never really thought I had that. And it took me a long time to realize that I was addicted and I had an alcohol problem and that I needed to get some help.
Mm-hmm. But what was it like being you when you were little? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up?
When I grew up, I just wanted to work on my family farm with my grandpa and my dad, and I wanted to farm and I wanted to truck when I got older, and that's really what I wanted to do in life.
So from the time you were little, hanging out on the farm, riding on the tractors with Daddy and Grandpa and all, like, this is what I want to do, and like, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yes, sir. It was definitely what I wanted to do.
When did you? And you said you had alcoholism in your family tree, which I know that my family tree and your family tree, somewhere down the line, it connects. We've got family cemetery full of alcoholics.
Oh, yeah, we got a bunch in our family. My mom, she struggled with alcoholism from the time, probably, I first remember at about 8 years old. She was going in and out of treatment, and she would be gone for a while, and then she would come home, and then she would do good for a while, and that's the first time I really recognized what alcoholism was about. I didn't really know where she was going, but I knew she was going somewhere to get some help.
Did you know that she was alcoholic? I mean, did you see her?
I didn't know it. I didn't know at 8 years old, probably 10 or 12. When she would go to treatment and come back home, she would always hide her drinking from my dad, and I would find alcohol in the closets, like beer cans that she had drank, and I would just dispose of them because I didn't want her and my dad arguing. So I was kind of caught up in the middle of it.
You were trying to keep the peace.
I was trying to keep the peace.
At 8 years old, 11 years old, you were trying to keep the peace.
I was trying to keep the peace.
Where did you come up with that? Like, that was your responsibility?
Because I knew that if my dad found the beer cans, that he was going to be mad because she had went to treatment and came home and she wasn't supposed to be drinking. At 10 years old, I knew she wasn't supposed to be drinking. I knew that she couldn't handle her alcohol, and I knew if she would only drink when she got home from work, and she would drink them real fast and then put the beer cans in the corner of my closet, and then I would find them and I would just take them out in a trash bag, and nobody ever knew anything about it.
You didn't confront her about it, or?
I never confronted her about it at all. Right. I just wanted my family happy.
Right.
Just wanted my family happy.
Now, when are you the oldest?
No, I'm the youngest. I got a sister. She's older.
How much older is she?
2 years older. She's 40 and I'm 38.
Right. And she looked after you, did she
Yes,
not?
she did.
I mean,
Yes,
she was
did.
very protective over you. And
very protective.
How was y'all's relationship coming up?
As kids, we were kids. We argued and fought. But, as I got older, she was always my big sister, and she always was looking out for me and trying to look out for my best interest. And, I really, later on in life, I really realized that.
Yeah. So when your mom went to treatment the last time, I mean, we're just, we've got permissions to talk about all of this,
yes.
Right? I mean, your mom is,
my mom's
she's an open book.
Yeah, she's in recovery. She's been sober 11 years now.
And I was involved to some degree of your mama going off and going to treatment.
Yeah, what I remember, you intervened on her once or twice?
Once.
Once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that you had intervened at least once, but the last time she's been she went to Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and she's been sober 11 years now, and she's I really didn't. My mom never really pushed the issue with my addiction and my recovery because she didn't want me to kill myself. She wanted me to get my life together, but she did not push it on me really hard because she knew all the demons that I had in my mind and the things that I would do to myself. So she was really scared.
Yeah, I'm sure she was. Now, when we made the approach to your mom years ago, you weren't there. What was going on with you, if you're all right sharing that? Like, where were you? Were you in your own addictions at that point,
Yes,
or what?
Yeah, I was caught up in my meth and alcoholism, and I was not present when y'all intervened on my mother. I did not come to Texas and see my mother when she was in treatment. I could not get away from Blackstone long enough to come see my mom. So I just talked to her.
What do you mean you couldn't get away from Blackstone long enough?
I couldn't fly because I couldn't not go a couple of days without getting high. Like I never left Blackstone my whole entire addiction because I needed to be close to my substance so I could get it and keep my fix.
Did your sister know what was going on as to why you weren't much involved in that part of the process, or were they starting to have some ideas, or were they just completely in the dark?
I do believe that that was I drank from the time I was like 16 here and there, and when my mom was going to treatment, I believe that I had just started using the substances, and I think that nobody in my family really knew it the first couple years that I was getting high, what I was doing, because I was hiding it very well. But later on, that changed. So I just think my sister thought I was just too busy to go because I was running our family farm. We had a trucking company. I was running that. And I was a really busy person. So I think they just thought I was really busy working.
Mm-hmm. So they just took it upon themselves to handle it. And your sister was a big part in
Oh yes, my sister was a big part of my mom's recovery.
Yeah,
and reaching out to you, and then my sister was a big part in reaching out to you to try to get me to get treatment, and for y'all to get a plane together to work for me to try to get me to go to Florida. But I was hard hit and I didn't want to listen.
Yeah, you had some other plans for a long time, man. Yeah. Well, so when did you first use? Like, what did that look like?
My first time I used cocaine was at 24 years old. I'd never smoked weed in my life. I'd never done any drugs in my life. I was hanging out with people that were doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, and I hung out around them for a couple of years, and I never done it. I never done any blow with them, and then I got in some bad spot in my head, and I was like, well, this might make it better. Let me try it. And I tried it. And I was just a weekend warrior for a couple years. And then I got introduced to methamphetamines. And once I did that, the guy told me that I got it from, he said, if you do it, you'll never want that other stuff again. And that was God honest truth. And that addiction, I started that at 26. And I did that until I was 34 years old.
Did it immediately grab you?
Immediately grabbed me, a hold of me, like I had to do it every day. It didn't ruin my life in the first several years. Thought I was managing it. Now that I'm clean and sober for almost 4 years, I realized that it was slowly taking my life away from me.
Yeah, man, that methamphetamine, it is ruining rural America.
Yes, it is.
I mean, in our small area, South Central Virginia or Southside Virginia, Blackstone population, 5,000, maybe 6,000? Well, we got 11,000 in the county.
Yes, sir.
The robberies and all the stuff that's going on in our area just from methamphetamine. Yeah. There's some of the most difficult interventions that you can ever do as a methamphetamine intervention because you don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, you have no idea.
You don't know how long the run's going to last. You got to catch them on the crash and just some bizarre thinking, psychosis, volatile. You don't know what they're going to do or capable of doing, what they're seeing, what they're hearing. They're tough, man. I've had my four-wheeler stolen and out at the farm, just constant thieving, and it's all methamphetamine.
Yes, sir.
I'm watching hold on, we're gonna pause here for a minute. Why are you calling me sir? My name's Sam, man. You know me all my fucking life. We've known each other at least the last 4 years, right? Relax. We're just two guys having a conversation. This ain't a job interview. You know what I mean? Don't call me sir. You ain't never called me sir. Never. In the fucking history of this, you've never called me sir. But man, I mean, it's tearing people apart. Man, I'm watching guys that I knew when they were kids, like headed somewhere, and then you see them now, and it's just like they're out to lunch, you know.
And that was me for many years. You know, I was very, very successful. I was helping my dad with our trucking company and farming, and every life was very, very good. And you know, I just couldn't stop using the drugs. And everybody in my family, after about 5 years, they realized something was wrong with me. My children, my wife at the time, they knew that something was not right with me, but they could not figure it out. It's like you said, you know, we'll go, somebody on amphetamines, they will go to any length to get their fix. And I would go to any length, and I would do some very bad things. You know, I had 3 children. I loved my kids a lot, but I did not have no way of showing them that I loved them anymore. The drugs had took such a toll on my life and made me spiritually sick. And it took my family talking to you and trying to get me into treatment. And I remember when I got locked up the first time, I told you I would go to treatment when I got out, but you waited. In my eyes, I had been in jail for 15 days, and you hadn't reached out to me and told me you had a place for me to go to about 20 days. And I was like, well, I ain't got but like 20 more days and I'll be out of here. I ain't got to go to treatment. I'll be free. Like, I had to do IOP. It won't matter. Like, I can get high and do IOP on the phone and nobody ever know. You know, I had zero accountability.
Right.
Zero.
Is that what you were doing when you got out the first time?
Oh, yes.
You were doing IOP virtually?
Virtually.
How was that?
It sucked.
Well, I mean, what was it, 3 hours sitting in front of a computer?
It was like 2 hours sitting in front of a computer, but I was high the whole time I was doing it, so I was getting absolutely nothing from it. I could see if you're sober, if you've been through treatment and then you got to do IOP once you get out, I could see it working that way. But the court's just saying, hey, you got to do IOP because you just got locked up and you had amphetamines in your system. Like, if there's no accountability with it, like, what good is it going to do?
They're just checking boxes.
You're just checking boxes.
It's like, hey, you need to do this.
Kind of like the drug test is when you go do a drug test for the courts and they say, well, we're not going to watch you. Like, you can just do whatever.
It's just a standard, kind of like going to VASAP.
I've never done that.
In the alcohol substance abuse program or whatever. It's like the state programs you have to go to if you have a DUI. You know, oh, you got to go to VASAP, and it's just a bunch of lectures. And I get it, man. They're overloaded with cases and this problem, but it's an opportunity when they have someone to say, like, hey, you're going to do this, not just as a consequence and not just as, you know, this is just what you do, is like, hey, we want to do everything that we can do while we have you to make sure that you don't ever come back in our court system again and give you the best solution that we can.
Yeah, what it took for me is when I got out at that time, I was doing IOP.
What were you in jail for?
Violating protective order.
Well, what happened there? I feel like we're leaving out a lot of stuff here. Like,
yeah, well,
take us on the party with you, man. Like,
so my wife had got sick and tired of me acting the way I was acting, and she decided it was time for her to, I believe, I don't know this, I believe with some guidance from Sam Davis, told her, you know, look, you don't need to have these kids around this stuff. You need to get away from him. And I despised you because of that. And I had hard feelings towards you, Sam. But
oh, come on now.
Yeah, I had some hard feelings towards you. You know it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you called me. Why are you talking to my wife, man? You sleeping with my wife?
Yeah, I had all kind of theories going through my mind because I was still getting high, you know.
Yeah.
And so she decided that on February 11th of 2021, she decided she had enough, and she left with my 3 children and her 3 children. And she moved out, and that was a very, very hard time for me. That was a very hard time. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take that my 14-year marriage, it was gone, because I knew she was done, and it was no more working on that. But that was the thing that saved my life. That really saved my life. And so I laid
You
around.
blaming her for all of this when she walked out the door and all?
I was definitely blaming her.
You weren't taking ownership or able to take ownership of
no
like,
responsibilities.
Hey, I had a lot to do with this. Maybe methamphetamine has something to do with it, but it was like, you did this to me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Is like, you caused me to act this way. Like, if you would come back, I would just stop doing it. Like, I've been doing it for 10 years or 8 or 10 years, and I'll just stop. Like, it's no problem. I'll just stop.
But you believe that, didn't you?
I believe that.
when you were telling her that, like, you believed it.
I believe
it. No, I'll do it. I'll just stop, because you're thinking that the drug is the problem.
Yes, sir.
If I just stop it, then I don't have to worry about it. And you believe that shit.
I believe it.
Did you have an experience that showed you could pull that off?
No, I didn't have an experience.
Right.
So I laid around and I thought a lot of different things, and I knew my life was over. I really thought my life was over, and so after about 20 days or so, I could not take it anymore, and I reached out to tell my kids I loved them. And of course, she had a protective order on me, and I violated it. And at that time, the law come looking for me again, and I wasn't ready to go to jail yet, so I hid from the law for a couple of days.
Did you?
Yeah, I hid from the law for a couple of days.
That's a bad experience.
It's a very bad experience.
Looking over your shoulder all the time.
I remember it was snowing on the ground, and I would look out the window at nighttime, and I would see footprints going around my house where the law was walking around my house looking in the windows. But I had shut all the blinds in the windows, and I had taken all the blankets that I had in the house and piled them on my bed, and I had got underneath all the blankets, and I laid there for like 3 weeks and didn't get up. And I finally ran out of what I had left to do. And I called my sister. I said, look, I've got to do something. I said, I know I got to go to jail. This is my 3rd time in jail. I said, I know I got to go to jail, but when I get out, I want to go to treatment. And she said, are you done doing what you've been doing? And I said, yes, I am done, finally. And she's like, okay, well, when you get out of jail, we will be in and talk to Sam, and we will find a place for you to go. And I went back up. So while I was laying there, and right before I went to jail, I started looking up treatment centers. And I looked them up, treatment centers in Florida. Never had looked for a treatment center in my life. Never. I looked up St. Augustine Recovery. And
did somebody tell you to look it up?
Nobody told me to look it up.
You just looked it up?
I typed in on Facebook, on internet, recoveries in Florida, because I wanted to go to Florida to get away from everybody in Blackstone.
Right. Everybody wants to go to Florida to get sober, man.
First one that popped up was the Augustine Recovery. So I called them, and I told them I was going to jail, and then when I got out, I wanted to go to treatment. And they told me to just get my family to get in contact with them. I never told my family anything. When I got picked up from Piedmont after 65 days by your client, your transport, and I got taken back to your sober house in Richmond.
Which a transport, for those that don't know, is like when an addicted individual's in jail or they're in the hospital, or that whenever they, if it's a risk that even if they're leaving their house and they say they're headed to treatment, it gives the family some peace of mind that they are being transported and escorted from point A to point B. Plus, the individual that's escorting the addicted individual can help prepare them for treatment, connect with them, share their story, help calm them down a little bit, answer the questions that the individual has about what treatment's going to look like. Or it's a good tool that families can use. And there's some good folks that do it to transport their loved ones from point A to point B. So that's what that was.
So when I was almost ready to get out of jail, I meant to put this part in there, but when I was almost ready to get out of jail, I had been in there the first time I'd been sober in 10 years. It was 65 days. It was 60 days in Piedmont, and that was a really horrifying experience to get sober in jail, coming off amphetamines. And
Piedmont is not a fun place.
No, it's not.
Piedmont Regional Jail.
And it was, substances in there and alcohol, and I just did not want to do it. And I had thought my ex-wife, which was my wife time, I thought she had calmed down, so I thought it'd be a great idea to give her a call on the jail phone.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that was a bad idea.
That was a pretty bad idea. That I didn't even talk to anybody. I called her number from jail, and next day they called me up to the front of the jail, and I had to go up there and see the
lieutenant.
Yeah, the lieutenant, and they had another charge on me for violating the protective order again. And I was like, I didn't even.
From jail.
From jail.
You're hard-headed.
From jail. And I was like, I didn't even talk to anybody. I just called the number. And I tried I had thought about lying about it and say somebody else called her. But I was like, at that point, I knew I had to start telling the truth. I was like, yes, I did. I really want to talk to my children. I want to tell my children that I love them. Because this has been 65.
You were probably crying when you were
saying
I
was crying. This has been 65 days I hadn't spoke to my children. So I got another charge 5 days before I was supposed to get out of jail. And so here I am.
I remember that. Your sister called and said, you won't believe what he did.
Yeah.
You just won't believe what he did. I said, man, I'll believe anything that he did. What'd he do?
Yeah, and that was stone sober.
I said, God, why the hell did he do that?
Yeah, so I
sober.
Yeah, sober.
Yep.
First time I've been sober. Sober 10 years, and I still violating protective orders.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to court over in Lunenburg, and I walked in, and my lawyer come in, and he said, why did you call her? And I was like, because I wanted to tell my kids I love them. You know, my kids need to know that I love them. And they said, well, we understand that, but you're not supposed to call her or the children, contact with the children either. I said, I understand. I said, it is what it is. I guess I've been here for a while now. And I went up to the courtroom, and I don't know what miracle happened. But that judge said, we really think that you want to get sober, and your family's putting in the work to find you a place to go. And the only way you can get out of jail is if you have a sober transport pick you up and take you from Piedmont Regional Jail straight to St. Augustine to treatment. And you have to stay there 120 days, and we will think about letting you talk to your children. And that's when y'all picked me up and took me to your sober house back in Richmond.
And I remember because I hadn't seen you in years, really. I mean, I really hadn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I didn't really know each other. We knew it because we're just from a small town. But, man, I remember I walked in the door of the sober house that night, and you come bebopping down the steps, man, and you were really glad to be there.
Really glad.
You were really glad to be there because the last I had heard from you was like you had called me on the phone saying that I was sleeping with your wife and don't be talking to my family. I don't need help and, got a real problem with me. And
I think I came down and gave you a hug or shook your hand and told you I was sorry.
Came down and shook my hand, came down the steps, shook my hand and said, man, thank you. And I'm like, man, like you're doing this, and and you took off that next morning, gone.
And me and your transport, we went to Florida. And that was the first experience that I had seen with sobriety, is on that ride to St. Augustine with your transport. And we talked all the way down there, and people were calling him. I shared this a lot. People were calling him, and he was carrying on conversations about sobriety. And I was like, what kind of stuff is this? Like, I've never seen men be so happy to talk to other men. Like, that wasn't how I was. If I called a man in my life, it's because I wanted something, money, drugs, or they had something I wanted, or it was not to carry on a conversation, just being joyful.
Mm-hmm.
And
talking about
meetings,
talking about gratitude,
just anything like, and it wasn't just one call; it was the whole way on our 10-hour ride.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I want that. I really want that.
So having him take you down there and seeing him live sobriety had you like. That's that attraction, not promotion.
Yeah,
thing.
That was an attraction for me, and then I got into the Augustine Recovery down there and went to the intake, and I'm a very country boy. I don't eat crazy foods. I'm just very country. And
what's your staple, man? Like, you meat and potatoes, right?
Meat and potatoes,
some rolls, yeah.
So I walked in, and they did the intake on me at Augustine Recovery, and I was sitting there, and some guys come through the door. And, I was nervous when I walked in that door. I was like, man, I've never been around this many people. And I think it was 25 people in there. And
fear-driven.
And they did my intake on me, and, they asked me how long it's been since I used, and I told them I'd been in jail for 65 days, and I've been clean 65 days. And they said, well, that's really good. We don't usually have people come in here been clean for 65 days. And so they opened the door, and a guy brought me a plate of food. And I had never, ever in my life eaten chicken fajitas with peppers and onions but I come out of jail for 65 days. I was willing to eat anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and ate that food, and it was the best food that I really had ever ate. And matter of fact, I ate some last night just like that. But that really opened me up. And I walked in there, and it was 25 guys, and every one of them were just like me. There was some that had been there for 4 months. Some had been there for 3 months, 2 months. Some just got there the day before I did. And all of them had different things that I wanted. They knew about recovery. They knew, and I was like, how do I get to where you're at? And it was like the steps, they're doing the step work. And I was like, well, I'm ready to do the step work. And so they next day we started doing step work, and I worked at 12. While I stayed there, the 4 months I was there, I did my 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous there, and I started on my 12 steps of NA while I was there too. Once I did my steps, and I realized that this is the way I want to live, and that as long as I continue to do what I've been taught, that I have a better life out there than what I had when I was using. Then I got out of the 4 months in treatment, and I went to the sober living house, which is, you live there sober under guidance.
What was that like? Like, what was, like, did you find a brotherhood in treatment?
Oh yeah, I found a brotherhood. It was like 5 guys that I really connected to. All of us was friends. I had no problems in treatment with anybody. I did exactly what they asked me to do there. Man, Jason Shane, man, me and him come very close while I was there. I was helping him do things, and they would always joke, man, Michael likes to get out there with the leaf blower and blow the decks off, and he's always cleaning the asphalt off. Like, I don't know, I was used to working.
Right.
So I was a very hard worker there, and I was cooking food. Like, I hadn't cooked a meal of food in like 12 years of my life. And then now I'm down here in treatment, and I'm cooking dinner for 25 guys.
Because y'all had cook crew.
Yeah, had cook crew. We had responsibilities.
Yeah.
You go from no responsibilities to cooking, cleaning, doing step work, doing therapy, all these things that I had no clue of doing because I was just running wild for so long.
Right. And that's why I like programs where they have the clients doing cook crew and providing the meals for the community, because, man, what a waste of an opportunity to learn a life skill, man. Most of us are coming in through the rooms or coming into treatment with, not the best cooking habits, not the best life skills. So to have them have to get with 4 or 5 guys or 4 or 5 women, whatever program you're in, and like they have to go by the menu and cook the food, prepare the food, and serve the food. Like, it's getting out of yourself and it's teaching you a life skill, man. I think it's a huge waste when programs don't do that.
It really taught me a lot. I was used to cooking before my addiction, and I just kind of stopped when I, that took over my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it taught me a lot. It brought back a lot of memories of, preparing food, and like we had to clean, we had to wash our own clothes. Like that was big. Like, I wasn't used to doing any of that.
Everything was a life skill.
Everything was a life skill.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things there, I had a therapist that was a female, and I had to talk to my therapist about all the horrible things that I did to my family and my ex-wife. And, that really was hard for me to talk about them things to a female, but I really do think today that that's what it's helped me heal from my bad choices that I made.
Yeah. Now, Augustine, they pride themselves on, they're geared to do some deep trauma work with guys. Like, they're about trauma for men.
Yes, sir.
Primary substance abuse. You stop calling me sir. You've never called me sir, ever.
I'm sorry.
Why are you doing it here?
I don't know.
You've never done it. He called me a son of a bitch. He called me everything. I ain't up in here calling me sir. It's killing the vibe of the podcast, man. I'm just kidding. It ain't really. What was I saying?
I don't know.
I'll edit this out.
Yeah.
Like, so Augustine is geared for men's trauma. Like, that's what they're known for. That's like Jason Chain's a trauma expert. Did you know you had trauma before you went in there? Or when somebody said, hey, you probably had a lot of traumatic experiences, you were probably like, nah, I don't need no trauma.
Yeah, I didn't really think that I did, but once I dug down deep, I realized that as a child that I had got introduced to a lot of my grandpa. He talked very vulgar to my grandmother, and I didn't realize that when I was a little kid that was not right. And once I did some trauma work, I was like, a lot of my behaviors are just repeating how I was taught when I was younger. And I made a decision right then and there that was no longer going to be how I was going to act towards a woman in a relationship or my children.
Mm-hmm.
But it was traumatizing to me. Also, my mom was going to treatment, which I love my mom to death, and she's doing great today. And I don't really like to speak on her a lot, but it was kind of traumatizing to me that she would come back for a while and then she would start drinking and then she would disappear for another 4 months. She's been in treatment quite a few times. I don't know exactly how many times, but it's been a few times. And I just remember her going, and I would just kind of like hang out with one of my good friends and his family, and they were pretty much, his mom would kind of be my mom while my mom wasn't home, and that was kind of traumatic to me, to not my mom to be there like everybody else's mom was.
Right.
But now today, I can realize she was trying to better herself, and by the grace of God, she's been sober 11 years, and me and my mom have a great relationship now.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Do y'all talk about sobriety a lot, or sponsors?
We talk about sobriety now. My mom, she doesn't go to as many meetings as like I do. I still stay really strong in my meetings. I try to go to 3 or 4 a week, most weeks, and especially when I'm working with some sponsees, just taking them to meetings and just keep getting them out there, because when I came back to Blackstone, it wasn't a lot of recovery. I didn't know a lot of recovery people, and I just had to kind of go out on my own and find people because there was nobody my age really talking about recovery. And I found a group of guys and I found a sponsor here home in Blackstone. And, today we have a meeting in Blackstone, and a lot of people come to that. My mom, she comes to that meeting some, and, it's nice. A lot of people that I didn't even know go through the Augustine, and they come back and they live really close to me. And now, I reach out to them and we talk a lot and go to meetings, and life's really good today. And,
So let me back up a little bit because I do want to talk about that, but I don't want to miss a step here. And because this is a big thing with a lot of people that go to treatment is, they don't want to go to sober living. My sober living experience, when I was in sober living, I mean, it wasn't the cleanest environment around, and it was packed full of guys, but it was like a college experience without the drugs and alcohol. I didn't go off to university, but in sober living, and if I could go back to that, I would like to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to do what I have to do to end up in sober living, but just the freedom that you had. Everything's brand new. It's an experience we haven't lived before. What was your experience like in sober living?
So when I got to sober living, the guys that I had got really close with me, they were a couple months. They were like a month or so behind me coming to sober living. So the first month I was there, it was kind of like just go to meetings, and we was in St. Augustine downtown. You could walk
old town St. Augustine. That's a cool spot.
Really cool spot.
Yeah.
It's it was a lot of they had to get a job within, I can't remember if it's 2 weeks after you get into sober living, you got to get a job, I think. And so I was searching for jobs. St. Augustine is a great community for sobriety because there's a lot of meetings down there, and there's a lot of people in recovery, and
there's a lot of
Is there a lot of job
opportunities down there?
Shoot, within a week or so, I had like 10 or so job offers. And
what'd you end up doing?
I ended up help building boat docks, and that took a toll on me because I'm from Virginia, and it was really, really hot. And I was towing 6x6s up on top of boathouses. I did it, and I was doing some siding. I worked for 2 different people, and it just wasn't the work that I was used to.
Right.
I'm used to being on a tractor or in a tractor trailer. Here I am toting 6x6s on top of a boathouse with 100-degree heat. It was a little warm,
but it was an experience.
It was an experience.
You know what I mean? It was a new experience. So when you walk out of the door of treatment and you're all of a sudden in sober living and you got nothing.
Yeah, you have nothing.
What'd you have? What'd you have when you went to sober living? You had your family support.
I had my family support,
but they weren't going to be buying you new Nikes and
No, I had the clothes that I went to treatment with, and when I went into sober living, I think I had to borrow some money from my sister until I got a job to be able to buy, because you got to furnish your own food when you're in sober living to eat on, and then I later paid her back. But you had to. It's basically like you had to learn how to live on your own.
So when you went to sober living, typically a family would be like, all right, we're going to get him the first couple of weeks of groceries. Next is on him, right? But she was like, the family right out of the gate came out with strong boundaries of like, hey, I'll loan you the money for you to get your groceries, or was that something that you did?
No, they said they loaned me. They believed in me that I was going to stay sober, but they wanted me to put in the work to show them that I was going to stay sober because they were used to me telling them I was going to do something. I was a very, very stubborn person, and like I would do good for a while, and then I would slack off. But they wanted to see me do good, and I'm grateful for that today. Like I came from having like I probably had 30 or 40 vehicles in my life, and when I got out of treatment, I had like $2 to my name, and just by the grace of God, my dad helped me get a bicycle so I could drive the bike to work in St. Augustine because he didn't want me to have a vehicle because he didn't want me to drive anywhere. So they helped me buy an electric bike. He said, I will help you get it, but you're going to have to pay it back. And,
like, man, no free rides, man, right?
No free rides.
I mean, that was critical for your sobriety, you think?
It was critical.
For your growth?
Yes, sir.
Is for them to there you go with that sir shit again. Letting you stand or fall on your own.
Yeah. He
like, down in Florida by yourself, like, they weren't not talking to you. They were talking to you, but they just held boundaries. They weren't being unkind or being nasty to you, right?
Yeah, they were very
supportive.
Very firm boundaries. And I stayed in the sober living for 2 months. I was supposed to stay 3 months. And my dad called me, and he was like, I need help back home. Do you think that you would be willing to come back home and live with us in our house and go back to work? And
were you scared?
I was scared. And I think I called you when I left. I'm pretty sure I called you when I left the sober house and told you I was coming home.
Yeah.
And, we talked a while about that. I was definitely scared. But my dad had put up with me for so long, I felt like I needed to come help my dad. And I knew if I moved back in with him and went to work with him and I went to meetings and I got a sponsor, that as long as I was doing what I was supposed to do, then things are going to work out.
Right. Not ideal. I mean, for professionals working in the field, for that plan to unfold like that, when your dad's calling you saying, hey, you want to come, it's kind of going rogue as far as the treatment field is concerned. It's a rogue move.
Everybody there was scared that I was going to go back out and relapse. But, I just kept doing what I was supposed to do, and it all worked out. My dad, he's getting older, and he needed some help. He was cutting some corn, and he needed help hauling, and he couldn't do it all on his own. Because I was in Augustine. I got locked up February 3rd of 21, February 2nd of 21, and I came home, I think, in September of 21. I was down in Florida, in jail in Florida that whole time. Mm-hmm. And I came back home and went back to trucking like I was doing when I was using, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right doing what I was doing before, and I had to do something different. I couldn't continue to truck, and I got my dad through that year and helped him the next year a little bit, and then I went to work for a company working on dump trucks, and that was a good thing. It was kind of hard for my dad at first, but he realizes now that I need to get away from what I was doing. And then then I recently got a job at another place that I work at now, and me and my dad's relationship was really damaged there for a long time. He had zero trust in me because I stole a lot from him, and I did a lot of bad things. But today we get along great. My mom, my dad, my sister, my kids. There's one thing I wanted to talk about, my kids. So when I went to jail, they told me that I could talk to my kids in 120 days if I went to treatment. I was like, well, that's fine. I'll do that. I got out of treatment, and the judge, he wasn't really happy with me because I told him I was going to do good, told him I was going to go to treatment, and I would back out on him. So he's like, I want to see you do good before I let you back in them kids' lives. And it was I remember today, it was 366 days before I ever spoke to my children, could even say hello to them. And the day that it came that I could speak to my children again, it was a very profound experience. We were sitting in a therapy session, and the kids were there, and I walked through the door. And when I walked through the door, all three of my kids tackled me down, and they didn't even know who I was because I was wearing glasses. I looked like a normal human being, not a strung out guy. And me and my kids have a very special bond today. My kids know that nothing comes before my children, and they know that.
Anybody that sees you out and about in the community can see that, knows that. I mean, you're always like watching you on social media and just hearing what you're doing, It's because life is completely different for you right now. Yes. Like totally different,
Yeah, I was never big into praying and going to church or any of that kind of stuff. And, I've got connected to my higher power, which is God. And I go to church every Sunday. I go to meetings. I help people. I sponsor guys. I've had some guys I sponsored, and they do good for a while and then slack off, and it kind of hurts my feelings. But at the end of the day, I know it's on them to put in the work that I put in, because it if you're looking from the outside in now, some people think that I have it made because my life is good now today. But my life was very tough there for a very long time before it got to where it is now. You got to go through those bad experiences before and work through them before it's going to get better.
Yeah, you got to pay the tax. When we create wreckage the way that we create it, we're not going to get to the shore of freedom without paying a little tax. It's usually a lot of pain.
Yes, sir.
A lot of pain. There you go with that yes, sir shit again. Where's that coming from, man? You ain't never called me that. You've never done that, ever. So, before you went to Florida, there was a lot of wreckage. I mean, you had a wife that now is your ex-wife that was putting, protective orders. You were doing meth addict shit, right? When we're doing meth addict shit, people react to that, understandably so. So how did all of that mend? Did it mend? What does y'all's relationship look like, co-parenting? Does she trust you? And also, two-part question, when you moved back to the community, did you feel like you had to look at your shoes a lot when you were walking down the street, or did you hold your head up? Did you find that most people were actually pulling for you? Was there a lot of sip, a lot of the gossip going on about Michael Sneed?
So I was married, and then about a year in sobriety, we got divorced, and our relationship for the first 2 years, we still couldn't talk to each other. The protective order was on for my first 2 years of sobriety. After a while, with a lot of praying and a lot of me showing them that I'm gonna do the right thing, our relationship started to get better. We started talking. We started communicating with the kids about the kids. And, of course, it was tough because we're going through a divorce and who gets what and all that stuff. But we managed to actually work that out on our own outside of our lawyers. Me and her actually worked that out, not dealing with the lawyers because we couldn't get along. And today we talk to each other. We matter of fact, we did Christmas with her family. We go to she comes to the lake some with us. We go to the same softball games. We all sit together. We go on vacations went to Tennessee last year. We actually have a better relationship today than we did when we was married.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And and on to coming back to the town, I felt like I had the people that were pulling against me. They were didn't want me to do good, but I had a lot of people that trusted me. A lot of people that from day one, I have probably about 5 or 6 people in the community that says we can see a difference in you. We can tell that you want to do the next right thing. And today, I feel like, of course, we're living in a small town. Of course, there's going to be some that say, oh, he's still getting high. Oh, he's still drinking. But the man upstairs knows that what I've done, and he knows that I've been sober and knows that I'm doing the next right thing. And deep down in my heart, that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm recently I'm in a relationship and I'm getting married in October. I'm getting remarried.
I'm going to be in the wedding.
And you're going to be
I'm going to be in the wedding.
Yeah.
The guy, listen, this guy right here, that is crazy, right? You didn't want anything to do with Sam Davis, man. Sam Davis was causing some problems. It was and now, I'm going to be in your wedding, man.
I'm glad to have you in my wedding.
I am honored to be in that wedding. Honored. And you got some guys that are coming up that you were in treatment with?
Yeah, I got a couple guys coming up from Florida that I was in treatment with, and my whole wedding party is all guys that are sober.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
A lot has changed.
Yeah. Got a good woman in your life?
Very good woman in my life.
Right.
Very good woman in my life. Got going to have 2 stepchildren, so it'll be five kids total, and they all like a stair step, and everybody gets along. So life's really good today.
Right. I got career path. Things have opened up for you.
I got a great career and something I never thought I could have ever gotten. I got a really good career where I work at.
What was the hardest step for you?
The hardest step for me was step 1, to admit I was powerless. like that. My life was unmanageable. I did not want to. I did not want to feel like I was defeated. Like my life, I knew things weren't right, but I thought that I could fix it on my own. I thought that I could just stop and I could just do it on the weekends. I didn't want to completely stop it. Like if I was awake and I was up and moving, I was high for 10 years. And for me to think that I could stop that anytime I wanted to was very delusional of myself. But once I remember in my floor in my house that I'm in now, living in, I was sitting there after I got done and the law was looking for me, and I called my sister. I said, I want treatment. I've got to do something different. And that's when I realized that I was powerless over my addiction, that I was unmanageable.
So the law was walking around.
Oh, they'll walk around the house.
Through the windows and all.
Yeah, there was a lot of things I seen and thought I was seeing up in the sky at night times, but the footsteps, I know I seen them.
Yeah, you up underneath 15 blankets underneath the house for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Not experience I ever want to experience again.
Yeah. What was the hardest amends you've made? Most difficult amends, if you want to share that.
Probably the most difficult amends will be to my ex-wife for the things that I put her through and those children through. I would say that, she didn't deserve what I did to her. She didn't deserve the things that I put her through, the financial strains that I put her through when she was just trying to get out the house and go get her life back together. We had been together since we were 15 years old. So 15 to 34, it's half her life.
Yeah.
And, I did things and called her names that I should have never called her. She was a very good mother she's a very good mother to my children. And it's been like a living amends. Like I just steady try to do better, for those kids to show her that I love them kids and that we can get along for them kids. I'm not going to sit here and say that every time we talk is perfect. There's going to be disagreements, but we don't have to holler and scream at each other and cuss each other out. We can get along and co-parent like we should.
That's a miracle.
It is a miracle,
isn't it? Completely different life.
Completely different life.
And I know as a member of the community, you've got a lot of respect in the community. People are really proud of what you did. Your name's got a good record on it. And I'm glad you were able to come up here today and be a part of this and take this interview. And glad to have you here, man.
Appreciate it, Sam.
Yeah. That's a wrap, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And always remember to be good to yourself. And we're going to see you next time.